What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered Truth. Our format's going to be a little bit different today, as my co-host James Shook had an emergency he had to take care of real quick, but we are here to kind of tell you guys what's going on with us and our future and things like that. What's going on, James?
Not too much, man. I'm going to give a shout out to the sponsors, though, impromptu here because I don't have any of my notes or cards with me, but we'll do a shout out to the sponsors. So we've got All Weather Construction. If we can get, let's see. All right, there's All Weather Construction. Yeah. So 470-519-6988. If you guys have any construction needs, home improvement, renovations, additions, anything like that, you guys can reach out to Steve over at All Weather Construction. That's 470-519-6988. And moving all right along to Peach State Printing. Peach State Printing's been a great supporter of the show. You can catch those guys up in Hiram, Georgia. They'll take care of any of your printing needs. That's www.peachstateprinting.com. You guys can find them, Google them. You can get the number online. Check out Jason and the guys over there. They do everything from stationery all the way up to vehicle wraps, screen printing, T-shirts, all that stuff. So any of your printing needs, go see those guys up there. And then we've got, last but not least, we have North Cobb Spine and Nerve. Any of your chiropractic or physical medicine needs, go see the ladies up at North Cobb Spine and Nerve. They're in Ackworth, Georgia. Very convenient right there at the corner of Mars Hill and 41. That's northcobbspine.com if you want to check them out online. Other than that, though, we have some news. We might have some good and bad news, I guess, to break today. But everything happens for a reason. So we'll kind of see where this leads us.
This is absolutely true. So we put a post up. I've done on my personal page and in our podcast page that we've been banned from Facebook for all intents and purposes. We still have a page, but we're banned from basically having the same footing and the same advertising, the same chances as another outlet. Basically what happened is a few episodes ago, we were talking about some things and I linked a YouTube video that goes back to one of Joe Rogan's podcasts. And it was a podcast where he had Douglas Murray on, and they were talking about the madness of crowds in his book, and we were talking about Antifa and all these things. And anyways, we linked that video. It was all we did. And there was one statement, I guess, that Rogan made on the podcast that wasn't completely true. It had to do with Antifa coordinating these fire attacks throughout the country, saying they're trying to burn the country down, which doesn't seem to be true. And Rogan came out from pressure from Spotify that we found out at this point and apologized for making those statements. And this was after we had linked the video, but let's just break it down. His podcast was like 2 hours with Douglas Murray, and a statement that was 30 seconds is what caused this huge problem for us and for him. And this is where we're at now. I'm going to share it, share the screen while you kind of got your thoughts on it, James.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is even a little more, I think, concerning than some of what we've been seeing with the censorship and other avenues that they've been taking stand on. For in this particular instance, I mean, this is just linking someone else's podcast, and in the podcast they're having a general conversation. So it's not as if it's being broadcast as this is, God's honest truth that everyone should, in some way use this information to make further decisions about things. It's a conversation piece, and that's extremely concerning when in a podcast type format, typically you're conversating with the other person, you're sharing ideas, they're giving viewpoints, and to try and censor that, based on the idea that you're somehow misleading the public and that they deem what you're saying to be misleading the public, whether they can actually prove that or not, which we know that's not provable actually, it's extremely concerning. I see it getting worse and worse every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just kind of want to share this page with y'all and explain to it. I've shown this to James already, and I think we linked this as well. So the reason why we were banned from advertising, and we're going to get into how this affected the podcast. I want you to see it right here. It says your page has reduced distribution and other restrictions because of repeated sharing of false news. People will also be able to see if the page has a history of sharing false news, which means we're now marked as a not factual place. The key that I want everybody to listen to and hear with this language is it says right here, repeated sharing of false news. Okay, whether or not the news is false is up for debate, but we'll get to that in a minute. Here's our violations. This is it. One violation. I'm going to show you. So this was the violation that we had. Joe Rogan experienced his podcast number, and then it just has the fact check behind it. So for repeated violations, that sure looks like one to me. And they basically banned us for that. And I want to go to our I'll go to our page in a minute and kind of share with everybody of how this has affected our views and our sponsors and things like that, and what this has done. The problem we're seeing, and I think it's going to create, I want to call it a great awakening, is people are going to start really seeing this, and it's going to start scaring people. Even people, I think, on the left are going to start seeing this. Your moderate leftists, your moderate Democrats are going to see things like this, and it should be problematic to them, because what if the shoe was on the other foot? That's not okay either. I mean, they share false information every day. You don't see WSB TV getting banned for sharing news stories that come out not to be true. When have you ever seen Facebook knock their page down?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Same thing for Fox News. If they share something that's false, or CNN or another news outlet share something false, you're not seeing them ban these bigger traditional news sources, because they just won't. And, your thoughts on that, man?
Well, I mean, you can go all the way back to Russia collusion with the Trump administration over the past couple of years, and tons of accusations are thrown out, and those accusations are allowed to just lie out there for all of the public to see and read and hear, and nothing's there's number one, an accusation about something. Let's use that as an example and say, so you have an accusation of the president is colluding, with Russia for whatever purpose, and you can't prove that yet. That hasn't gone through all of the proper channels of litigation, and having at one point they had a dream team of like 13 or 14 Democrat lawyers, to go after that, and they were at the end they were unable to find any evidence of it. So you would liken that to saying, then why didn't they go back or from the beginning, why didn't they just say, hey, we're not going to let any of that come out until it's proven? So in other words, there can be no accusations anymore. There can be no speculation. There can be nothing inquisitive or investigative about anything you do based on this standard that they're using against us and other other pages and podcasts and things as well. So therefore, we have to wait till after court cases are done and everything's completely decided before we can share any kind of information. And I would be suspect, even if that were the case, it would depend on what the outcome of the situation was, whether you would be able to share it or not. So, I mean, this is extremely problematic. I do want to make it clear for the viewers, when you talked about distribution of our podcast and the reach that it has. Now, that's a very specific term there, because what that means is some of you guys, especially people that follow the show closely and have viewed it before, they're probably still going to get to see that it comes up. They could easily say, well, you're still on Facebook. I can see that right now. But that's not really what they're actually doing as far as the way that they're punishing us, so to speak. What they're punishing us with is that the reach that would generally go out from a page to reach the masses at some point in time, it would eventually trickle its way, not necessarily through shares, but just through this viewer saw it and they're friends with this page, and this will eventually show up on their homepage. What they're doing is they're reducing that. So if you guys are already looking for us through us putting up a post that says we're going to have a show. Like a few moments ago, I got an update from Facebook and from YouTube saying the show was about to start. And you guys might still be seeing that. But as far as any additional reach goes, if you guys aren't clicking on that link and going to it, this is not going to show up in anyone's homepage. And that's where we see our numbers drastically decline. And if you look back at some of our first few episodes, we had upwards of 10, 15, 20,000 views in a relatively short amount of time, and now you're starting to see those views in the hundreds or less.
Exactly, and that brings me to our next point. So I did want to share this and show everybody the numbers, and I'll share our analytics with you. And I know this may be boring for some, but I just want you guys to see what's happened, and then where we're going from here. We'll get to that. Just stick with us on this. So we'll go full screen so y'all can see it. All right, so like James was just saying, our first episode, which is where I had James on the show, and we were talking about the art of the choke, because this is when the George Floyd stuff was really fresh, and all this had happened. So zero advertising, zero anything. You see 1.9K views right here, right? You know, it's okay for our first episode, and then we jump on. Me and James start our first episode together. We're 2.4K, and then we started advertising. I think after the second episode to kind of get a reach out there. And then look at this, the next episode, this is our biggest one so far, 17,000 views on just a regular topic like preparing for civil unrest and disaster, no confrontational or issues or anything that should be raising any flags. 17K. All right, next episode we talk about Second Amendment self-defense, and this is where you start seeing it getting real suspect. So we actually got in trouble for that picture of James there and the one down here for him having guns up because we were violating their terms. Whatever, no problem. 8.3K views. Then you go to Lance LaRusso, which should have been our biggest episode easily, and I truly think if Facebook hadn't been shutting us down, it would be. You see we're at 8,000 views, and then we start getting in more and more trouble after this because we were accused in this episode, number 5, of spreading hate speech. And then here you see we've gone down to 400 views, 400, 6.7K. We jumped up a little bit on that one. I think they let us advertise and then caught us in and then shut that down, right, James?
Yeah, there's a couple here where they did let us advertise, and I'll explain to you how the advertising works. So if we go more times than not, I would allow Facebook to make the suggestion to me to boost the post or to advertise the episode that we had out. And that was based off of Facebook seeing the analytics on how many likes we were getting on the post that had our podcast on it. So if I shared it on my page, Eric shared it on his page, we had some friends that would share it, they would start generating a certain amount of likes and views, and Facebook would make the suggestion, hey, because, obviously they want to make the revenue off of it. Hey, would you like to, to boost this? So more times than not, I would go on there, we would throw some money at it to boost it. And additionally advertise it above and beyond what the natural homepage viewership is going to be. Mm-hmm. And when we would do that, it would go up and be under review, but it would allow it to go ahead and post to a paid or a boosted entry. And we started noticing that it would a week would go by before we would get an update, or maybe even 3 to 5 days would go by.
Sure.
And they would come back to me and say, "Oh, that goes against our terms now," and they would give me some excuse. And I'm going to back up to one of the episodes you pointed out a moment ago. They gave me the excuse in the first video that you pointed to, where we had the rifle in the background. They gave me the excuse that we were pushing or promoting the sale of guns or ammo, and that just wasn't true. We didn't do any of that. As a matter of fact, we were talking about, in general, the idea behind what would be good carry weapons for ladies more than anything for self-defense. And we did put some examples up, but at no point did we ever promote the sale of ammunition or firearms. And so I think what's really happening is they're just finding a way to say, because they don't have to speak with you directly, and these transactions happen through email.
Right.
And so what they'll say is, well, you violated our policy, and if you disagree with that, then message us. Well, we'll get this message maybe 3 days after the episode is attempting to be boosted. We think that it's already been boosted, or that it's already been promoted as a paid ad. Yep. And then 3 days later, they send us a message. They say, no, it's not. If you would like to object to this, you can send us what you think your objections are, and we'll review it. And from there, you normally never hear back from them. So what we've done is we have challenged each one of these in every instance that it has happened, and we've never heard back from them after that point. And so basically what happens is you're just lost in the digital world there somewhere. And I don't believe that's an accident. I'm sure that plenty of people are getting their responses back, or they're getting their secondary review and they're getting an answer on whether that's going to be approved or disapproved. But in our case, we normally don't hear back from them whatsoever. And speaking with several different 2A pages on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, this is becoming pretty widespread, and it's expected, as you're starting to see a lot of the whether they do gun reviews or whether they just have they support 2A, and they promote that on their page. We're starting to see a lot of those transfer over to their own platforms, in some cases, even with their own networks.
Yep. And, to that point, James, sitting right here looking at trying to get a review from Facebook. I'm going to share this link for everybody real quick. Share this one. All right. It should be under account quality. Oh, wrong one. I'm sorry. And go back one more. Here we go. All right. Why does it keep doing that? Okay. It should be the account quality one. Stop, share. Sorry about this, y'all. We're having issues today. There. Okay. So trying to submit a review to Facebook, the only thing that it says that we can request a review for is saying that our page is not an e-commerce page. We can't request a review for the stuff that we posted. We can't request a review to be able to advertise anymore, things like this. It's impossible. Like, it's not going to do anything, and you only have 3 lifetime reviews apparently for your entire page, which is an absolute joke. So that's kind of where we're at with Facebook. And obviously, those of you that don't know, is and yes, David, you're right, but it's okay for news outlets to cause all these things, and that's completely cool when they're saying, "Oh, police shoot unarmed man," and come to find out, lo and behold, the dude had a knife. We can advertise that. That's cool, but then we can't. We're not going to ban those people. We're not going to restrict them because it doesn't fit their narrative. That's the easiest spreading of false information I think I can take from recent news that impacted millions, hundreds of millions of people, tens of millions of people at this point. And it's allowed to be spewed, and they're allowed to continue to spew it. You see the ads pop up. I know all y'all that have Facebook see, your news outlets popping up. Police do this, police do that. Trump does this, Trump does that. Case in point, let's look at what happened in the New York Post recently. Hunter Biden, right? Maybe that's the big news story right now. He dropped off a laptop, when his crackhead self, he forgot to pick it up and left it there. And I guess the guy that I'm sure he followed, I'm assuming at this point he followed the rules and stuff to, take possession of the property after X amount of days, which is how it goes if you drop stuff off of people and you don't pay to pick it up. Well, he goes through the laptop, and lo and behold, here's, all this stuff that's come out. The best thing on there for him was, or the least worst thing was him with a crack pipe in his mouth. That's the least of his worries at this point. Now he's, there's emails from him to China saying that they're about kickbacks for dad, all this other stuff. Well, Twitter completely banned users' accounts up to and including the president, his official campaign account. They banned Kayleigh McEnany's page, his press secretary. She got completely banned from Twitter. And then several other outlets, including the New York Post, a media outlet, got banned from Twitter for posting a factual story.
Yes, the 4th largest newspaper that's produced in the United States.
Yeah, and they're banned because of what? They posted facts. And that's where the double standard's at. So I guess we can just go and get into where do we go from here? What's our plan? Well, obviously, Facebook's not going to cut it. We appreciate our loyal fans, our loyal listeners, everybody that's here week in and week out. But obviously, we want to reach beyond that so we can at least get our point out there. They can see y'all's points as viewers. They can see our sponsors and actually do right by all those people. And Facebook's not going to be the way to do that. So here's our plan. Our plan is to move our entire account over to Podbean, which was actually suggested to me early on by a fellow podcaster. It was a good place to go, which will allow us to increase our reach. Obviously, with this comes time that we have to migrate all our previous podcasts and all these other things. We are on Podbean as Unfiltered Truth. But the cool part with them is we will be able to submit our podcast to all of these outlets that you see here: Apple, Google, the Podbean app, Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, and TuneIn plus Alexa, which I guess is Amazon's thing. I've never really heard of that one. But anyways, that's kind of our plan going forward, because we are allowed to advertise on these platforms. I did look into it. They are, really squashing conservative voices or alternate opinions. So I think that's going to be our way to go.
Yeah, and what I guess in the future what'll have to happen is we'll still be able to link our podcast, provide a link on Facebook to it, so we can still have the Facebook viewers go to view that. It will just be through a link where you'll have to exit the intranet known as Facebook, which, at this point in time, we can go ahead and say it, I guess. This will, I'm sure this one will be unable to be boosted. As a matter of fact, I think they've put a permanent ban on us so that we can't even attempt to promote anything through paying, throwing dollars at it. So at this point we can pretty much say what we want to. But yeah, I mean, obviously this comes down to if Facebook doesn't agree with what you're saying, then they're going to censor you, and they're not trying to hide it. They're blatantly telling us that, independent fact checker. Okay, so there is no such thing as an independent fact checker. Okay, these people they are definitely funded by someone or some group. As we've started to see, it seems to be that only conservatives tell stories and make up stories, and everything's a conspiracy on the Republican side, because you're just not seeing this, coming from the Democrats. I mean, or anything that even speaks from a left narrative. The left narrative seems to be able to go on and on and on. We saw it with, like I said, with the Russian collusion. We saw it with the Ukraine call. These allegations of this and that, and basically what they're saying is that those things are just bona fide truth, and there's no sense in looking into it. They've already determined for you that you should think that that's true, and you should be fully on board with their belief. And if you're not, then they'll just ban you from their platform.
Yep.
So I know we're going to get the response from certain people, and I've already heard it about, well, it's a private company that can do what they want to, but that's not necessarily true, because they are using public airwaves, and they are using the most mass form of communication there is out there, and there is some governmental structure in place that provides this platform for them to be on, and so it's not as easy as saying it's just a private organization. They can ban you if they want to. They can do this. They can do that. That is not the case. And I will say this, and I know that Republicans in Congress and in the Senate, mainly the Senate, was looking at putting some stipulations in place for these. And whether that ever happens or not, I mean, that could just be, something being thrown at us, to try to appease us. Whether that ever happens or not, what Facebook is going to have to realize at some point is that if you're pushing this single-sided version or this single-sided narrative, or you're allowing these single-sided narratives to come out, you're not allowing any objection to them or any speculation or investigation to that's contrary to that belief, then what's going to happen ultimately is, I think that the federal government is going to step in, and this is where it gets really dicey right here, because what we're doing is we're trying to go after Facebook and Instagram for censorship, but the only answer to that is us asking the government to censor them. And so this is where we've gotten to. So either there's no censorship or there's full censorship. And that's going to come at many levels. And, and that's ultimately the goal they were shooting for. Maybe it goes a lot deeper than just the surface of what we're thinking here. But, I don't want to see a world where the books are being burned. And in this case, this is the modern day book being burned.
Yeah, agreed. And I just want to show everybody again, these are the ads James was talking about. You can see, 5 out of 6 of the ones that we have just right there were rejected. Let's see if I'm going to see all. So 3 out of 4 more. So that's 8 out of 10, something like that have been rejected. Obviously, you see, starting with the second video, we started getting rejections just because of stuff, they're saying because of the guns in the background, stuff like that. We even mitigated that, took that out to appease them for a couple episodes. It didn't change anything. So obviously, why would we not go back to what we normally do? Because contrary to popular belief, the First Amendment, Second Amendment still do exist in this country. And I saw David, I haven't seen you comment before. Thanks for watching. Yes, they did invent it. And I do agree with you. I have said before, I lean more libertarian centered than a lot of people. And I get it, like what James said. Yeah, it's a private entity. That's fine. But the problem is they're literally discriminating against groups of people for their opinions. And that's where the issue comes in. What we have to do as people is take the stuff off their platform if we don't want to do business with them, which is our plan to do it. We're not just complaining. We're actually taking action to do it and take it off the platform. The problem why people won't give up on Facebook, if my best friend in the world told me this today, and I agree with him, people won't give up on Facebook, won't give up on Instagram, because there are certain people in this world that they live off likes, they live off, reactions to what they say and what they do. And, there's a whole other set of circumstances and issues that goes into that, needing that affirmation in your life. That's why Facebook will always be here, because there are those people. and that's fine. But our plan ultimately is to take it off Facebook, not give them our time, not give them, viewers wanting to use their account because, oh, this is the only way I can watch Eric and James is Facebook, YouTube, and that's it. Right now is all we have, or through StreamYard. But it's sad, man, and it is modern day book burning. It's absolutely sad. You see stuff that's 100% factual posted. One of my best friend's wife posted something about had to do with mask wearing and things like that. It was a medical article, and they said it contained sexual content and blocked it because I had a picture of a brain, like not even like an actual picture, like a drawing of a brain. So I guess now the brain's sexual content. That was just a way to block it. And you can see her post got 0 reactions, 0 likes. So I just happened to be scrolling through her page and saw that it was on there. I was like, oh wow, look at that. And you can see where it's censored. It's crazy and it's sad. And I can tell you right now, the other side of the fence would be raising hell, screaming how their rights are being violated and all these other things that they weren't allowed to put things that are currently going on the left side of the world, BLM stuff, Antifa stuff, anti-police stuff. If they weren't allowed to post that, I mean, when's the last time you saw anything to do with the police get fact checked when they checked them? Like I said, you haven't seen it, and that is dangerous for the country, and that's my worry with all this.
Well, okay. So now everything that goes up on by the standard they're holding us to, everything that goes up on their platform needs to be 100% verified, vetted, and fact checked. Mm-hmm. And whoever these fact checkers are, obviously we know this is a biased fact checking group. And if you go into your Facebook settings, you'll see there's a way to get into your settings, and you can see just how many different fact checkers have infiltrated all your stuff, and it's hundreds of them. Oh yeah. So this isn't like one organization that's been vetted through something. They use hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of organizations. They don't know who these people are. These people call themselves fact checkers, but there is no. If you want to get down to it, what is a fact? Actually. And then if we're going to go to facts, and this is before something's been decided. I mean, are we talking about litigation? Are we talking about a judge has deemed this to be a real thing? I mean, there is that's the slippery slope we're on at this point. And I mean, are we to say that anything comedy, anything meme related, anything that's clearly a joke? I mean, those are not facts, right?
Right.
So they need to be taken down off of this platform. And by the standard that they're using, well, I'll tell you what, there is no standard they're using, because here's what we've gotten more times than not. At least 90% of the time, they give us no actual reason why we were unable to boost a post or how we are going against their community standards. It just says this is a violation of community standards. And there's no way to figure out what the violation is. Second, I would say there's no way that Facebook's actually watching our entire podcast. So when we have these podcasts that go on for an hour, hour and a half, Facebook's not watching this, so they don't really know. They're just trying to guess at certain indicators inside of the podcast through, automation that's going to try to scan the podcast and see what it can find. And it could be something as simple as me wearing this American flag hat right here. And since the American flag seems to be offensive to everyone nowadays, I wouldn't doubt that being the case. I'm sure one of the big indicators for Facebook that's on our page is going to be, if you'll look in that top corner up above my head up there, you're going to see that blue line flag on the logo. And I'm sure that right there is one of the first things that Facebook picks up on. And we'll speak to Eric Hogan comes in here, because this is what I wanted to get to today. Since we're just gonna, since there is no more rules, we'll say we're gonna get banned anyway, more than we already have been. Let's talk about that. Here's like Eric says, fun fact here: Hunter Biden smokes crack. Well, that seems to be pretty obvious. I don't see anybody arguing it. As a matter of fact, I haven't even heard his own family come out and say that he doesn't smoke crack. So let's put some memes up. Let's put some pictures up of Hunter Biden smoking crack, and let's see if Facebook takes him down. I imagine they're going to have a massive problem with that, but I doubt they'll have any kind of issue with the Biden family coming out saying that this is just a smear campaign against their family.
Yep, and that's the thing, and that's the part that's worrisome about all this. I'm going to share something too that I just read on Facebook's little standards about their fact checkers to get into it. David, and we'll get to David's question real quick. Again, thanks for listening, man. Is the left advocating using the government to thought police Breitbart? I don't know if it's politicians at this point or if it's just the individual, entities like Facebook. And again, it's their property. I get that. But you're seeing so many people that are on one side of the fence or the other. You've got the right saying CNN's full of crap. You've got the left saying Fox is full of crap. And then, somewhere in the middle, we do have the truth. I think we all know that if you go independently check news sources, you're going to find stuff, which is what we've always tried to, hence the name of our podcast is, yeah, I hear you, Melissa. I'll share that in a second. But anyways, we are sharing what we feel to be the truth based on research that we've done. We don't typically state a lot of opinion-based stuff. It's usually, hey, this is what happened, like when we broke down the Jacob Blake shooting and got so much heat for it. When I was pointing out immediately that, hey, he was armed. He had a knife in his hand. We had a picture of the knife. They found the knife in the car. We got tons of hate for it. Cannot boost that ad or couldn't boost that podcast simply because they said we're spreading false information. It wasn't false. It was true. It was verifiable that he was armed. Again, it doesn't fit the narrative of what they want to say, what they want to do, and that's the problem. And you are seeing the left advocating absolutely book burning stuff. You hear politicians saying, hey, let's take down these statues. They're offensive. They're this, they're that. Easy saying, those that forget history are deemed to repeat it. If you don't have your history out there, it's going to happen again. And if you want slavery to happen again, or you want these bad things to happen again, a quick way to do that is erase it from our history in the first place. So anybody that's got any kind of sense should be like, okay, we need to see these things. Do they make us uncomfortable? Sure, they do. But you know what it does? It initiates a conversation. It's something where if you're, a minority and you have family or you feel slavery is important to you, or even if you're not, and you want to take your kids to these monuments, Stone Mountain in Georgia being one of them, and you want to take them to these places, that's where you have the conversation. And that's what you do. So it's scary, man. And that's honestly what Facebook's doing. That's why we're going to move our entire stuff off this platform. We may still share the videos on it. We just won't advertise or do anything. But we're going to move over to Google, to Apple, to all these other places that allow you to at least say stuff. YouTube, for the most part, has been good to us. They haven't censored us. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out what is the goal. So does anybody really step back and think, okay, well, if Facebook thinks that something is not a fact, so you're not allowed to talk about anything that's not a fact.
Yeah, James, your audio is kicking in and out.
What's that?
Your audio got really low.
So let me see if I can fix that. All right, how about now? We better?
No, it's still the same. So let me answer David's question while you're messing with that real quick. So, David, our statutes of Robert E. Lee preventing the return of slavery. Not saying the statutes themselves prevent it. The conversations that come from people going to these places and having those conversations with their kids that are uncomfortable allow us to understand what our history was and say, hey, this is what this was. And that's a problem. I mean, you even saw with all the stuff going on, tearing down statues of people that were on the Underground Railroad and stuff like that. But we're okay with that. And that's what I'm talking about. Is the left advocating this? Yes, they are, to answer your question 1,000%. So, and Eric, social media, it just needs to be honest, publish two sets of standards, one set for their liberal buddies and one for everyone else. This is true. Anybody that doesn't see this stuff happening, you're just living in a different world. Let me go over these program policies real quick and something important where Facebook lies to your face. Okay. I'm going to share it for you. I'm going to let you see it where it's in their writing, and we'll go from there. So share this one, make sure it's the right program policies page so I don't jump around again. Here you go. Okay. The really important one where Facebook's lying and where they're just trying to stop certain types of people is right here. Okay. Posts from ads and politicians. This includes words from a politician says as well as photo, blah, 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 blah. Evaluating the list of supplies. We ask our fact-checking politicians, look at politicians at every level. We define politicians as candidates running for office, current office holders, and by extension, many of their cabinet appointees. Along with political parties, their leaders, in some cases, we ask fact-checkers to use their expertise and judgment to determine whether the individual is a politician, like in the case of a part-time elected official. Our president has been censored repeatedly on Facebook. He's been repeatedly censored on Twitter. And I know Facebook and Twitter are owned by two different people. I'm not stupid, but I'm telling you, Facebook says right there they don't censor stuff from politicians, but they do. So they even said when they were posting the links to the New York Post ad about Hunter Biden, oh, well, we reduced that. Well, you reduced it for everybody, including the politicians who say you don't fact check, which is crap, because how many times has Donald Trump had something put on his account saying, oh, well, this is not true, right? And It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I got to address the Robert E. Lee statute here. Okay. So now, if at any point, if there's any person or any group or someone that can organize a group decides they're offended by something, we should just delete it and erase it. Okay. So that's what you want. You want it, let's get offended, let's erase it. So let's just erase everything. Nothing will be sacred anymore. Nothing will have any kind of standard to it. It's just it'll be a free for all. And listen, the people that are advocating for that kind of stuff, once it happens, their reaction will be priceless. I imagine they'll be looking to the people that did try to give them some notice on this. And I know what that reaction is. It's, oh, I didn't know. Well, yeah, you did. We've been telling you for a long time. You just don't want to listen to it. So either you're in on it or you're too dumb to figure it out. Either way, it's not productive for society. Okay, so let's go erase all of the statues and pull them down. Let's wipe Stone Mountain clean. Let's go to Mount Rushmore and get rid of everyone that's on there. Let's just do it in the name of whoever's offended by it. So it's absurd. The whole thing is absurd. Listen, you're going to be offended by people every walk of, in every facet of your life every day. What, are we going to delete these people? It's somebody offends you in the parking lot at Publix or something. You gotta have them killed. I mean, so that they're not in your life anymore. Somehow you're going to correct their mindset so that they feel the same way you do. That is absolutely silly. So for someone to post something or to ask a question about how the statue, yes, the statue has its place in our history. It is part of what happened during history as our country was being founded. It's one of the things that we built off of and continue to try to make our country better and better and better. And I'll go back to a phrase that's been quoted several times by many people. No one is moving to other countries to find the success that they have in the United States. It's the United States that is getting everyone flocking here. So until everyone's flocking the other direction, none of that makes sense. Okay, the United States obviously is a place that everyone wants to be in. Everybody wants to prosper here. They understand that there's an endless amount of opportunity in the United States. Okay, so everyone needs to drop the statue, the pulling down of the statues, the removing the 10 Commandments because it offends you. Wah. That's just weakness oozing from you, and it's disgusting.
Yep. And, let's bring it up something along the lines of that. You hear the extremes is what everybody wants to bring up. So I'll bring one up for you. Let's talk about the concentration camps in Germany. Let's talk about the Nazi concentration camps, right? The gas chambers. Those are still there, right? You know why Germany left them there? Because they don't want to repeat that history. That's why it's there. I would be willing to bet there's nothing more offensive and nothing more uncomfortable for a person of Jewish descent to see, walk across, or experience, and it be that. I would challenge you to find something more offensive and more unnerving for somebody to see that was going under mass extinction at that point during Hitler's reign. And that's why Germany left it there, because they know, and they're not stupid, they know if you start removing stuff like that, you're deemed to repeat history, because people need to have uncomfortable conversations. The problem is with so many people, the left and the right, I will say both sides, they want to live in their own echo chambers. They don't want to say or do anything or have a conversation that makes them uncomfortable. That's the joys of social media. We had people from Antifa threatening us on social media, all this other crap, knowing good and well they would never, ever, ever say anything like that to either one of our faces. Once they knew our background and all that other stuff, you're not going to do it. But social media is a place for people, and I'm not talking about anybody specific that's commenting today, but it's people that would not normally have that conversation with people to post and feel okay about it. Oh, I'm a great social justice warrior. I've done all this stuff. And, it's crazy, man. And it's mind blowing. And it's sad that people are that scared to have uncomfortable conversations.
Well, how about people just advertising how weak they are? I like walking around being offended by everything, posting it on Facebook, talking about how you are so offended that someone said something. I mean, that is the weakest thing in the world. Like I don't understand where humanity is going at this point. I mean, there is no men left in the world.
Let me answer this question for you, since it got brought up, David. So you should probably do research before you ask us questions, because I'm going to answer it for you, buddy. So where is the slave ship monument? Well, Let's bring up some monuments and memorials to victims of slavery in the United States, as cited by the left's favorite place, Wikipedia. You have the African Burial Ground National Monument, America's Black Holocaust Museum, the Harriet Tubman Memorial, the Legacy Museum, several more listed that. There's a memorial to enslaved laborers, National Memorial for Peace and Justice, National Slave Memorial, Portsmouth African Burying Ground, the statue of Frederick Douglass, and United Nations Slavery Memorial, which are all located, wait for it, within the United States. They're here. So they need to be here. And, if some white supremacist wants to go tear that shit down, they should be shot on sight, because you know what? That's part of history, and it needs to be here. And people need to be able to go visit those places and have those uncomfortable conversations. And they are here. So, but why aren't those being torn down? Again, it doesn't fit the narrative. Again, it may make you uncomfortable to see something that you don't agree with in your history. It makes me uncomfortable, and I obviously disagree with anything that has to do with slavery. It was horrible. But it doesn't make me the point where I'm like, oh, we need to tear that down and get rid of it. No, that's something I can take my kids to, and I have taken my kids to, and explain to them what it is so they can understand it and actually experience some diversity and be a well-educated human being and talk about it. It's something hard that they can see in front of their face. It's not going on the freaking computer and Googling something and seeing pictures that God knows where they came from and making that be your history. Again, Wikipedia, I hate using them, but that was the quickest way to answer your question, David, was that. So they're here, and people have got to understand that. But why is it not talked about? Oh, again, it doesn't fit a narrative.
Yeah, it's what are we going to do? Get rid of cemeteries because they remind people of death? I mean, death in general, a lot of people view that as a very negative thing compared to the positive of living a life, right? So we're going to get rid of cemeteries. I mean, the whole thing is absolutely absurd. And you brought, you mentioned it right there with, sure, we have, we have monuments for this, we have monuments for that. There's slavery monuments, and there's several across the United States. One of the things though that I will never do is as a white guy, I'm not going to apologize for something that I had nothing to do with, and something that likely the person I'm apologizing to would have never had nothing to do with. Most of their family members would have never had anything to do with that. And there's a very specific reason why I'm not doing that. It's because I don't feel like, as a white man, I don't feel like I'm better than anyone that's black. And if I felt that way, if I did feel that way, I would feel a need to apologize for it. So what it comes down to is the people that are apologizing for this, they're apologizing because they feel convicted inside them that they are better than black people. So if we're going to have that race conversation, that's what it comes down to. Otherwise, you have no reason to apologize. You don't apologize to people for something else happening to them that's not associated with you during the day. Somebody wrecks into someone else's car. It's not your place to run over to a third party and say, I'm sorry that I didn't run into your car, that somebody else did. Like, that's not your problem. And it's not your place to go point that out. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I'll openly say it. I don't feel like I'm better than anyone else, so I'm not apologizing to anyone else for me being white, or for there being a monument that might be offensive to someone. To be honest with you, I just don't care. If it's something that offends you, don't look at it. Don't go there. There could be plenty of things that would be offensive to me, but I just don't let things offend me that much. Exactly. But if there was, I just wouldn't be around those things. That's why I don't have certain people in my life, because I just don't like them. And if I don't like them, I'm not going to be around them and complain about them and want them to change. I'm just not going to be around them. It's such a simple concept that I think the public can't grasp. And it all ties back into this. I mean, it ties back into what, the title of the broadcast today. Being censored is exactly what Facebook is doing, and they're doing it in the name of groups. It's segregation. It's coming back, and the crazy thing is people that were against segregation are the ones pushing for segregation now.
Yep, that's crazy. And, they're pandering to certain groups of people, certain parties are. They're pandering to certain groups, and they think that they're going to get their vote simply because of where they are, what their party is. And Americans aren't dumb. Minorities aren't dumb. They're just as smart as the rest of us non-minority people, right? We all agree on that. Everybody's just as smart as everybody. So they're going to learn. And if you look, you can go to Brandon Tatum's Instagram page. You can go to his Facebook page. You can see the Blexit March on DC, where there's hundreds of minorities thousands that look like marching together, on behalf of their support of the current president. Just because somebody's black doesn't mean they're going to vote for Biden. Just because somebody's white doesn't mean they're going to vote for Trump. But I truly believe that the left feels that way, and they feel like that's the votes they're going to get. And I would agree. People need to read Georgia's secession document, Eric. Thank you. And also, I want to hit on one point, getting back to this before I link Jorge Masvidal's speech. Eric made a good point. The Confederacy needs to be remembered but not honored by our nation. They were an enemy of American people, 650K dead over their desire to own slaves and push it into new states. I agree. It should be a humbling experience when you go to somewhere, should Stone Mountain be an amusement park? I don't know. That is a little weird. I get it. I understand where people can come to that end. Okay, it's an amusement park. You can go do all this other stuff in the midst of all this. I get where that can create issues. Okay. Again, private entity, it's owned by a private company, not owned by the state. They can do whatever they want at this point. I think the mountain is maybe owned by the state, but the park itself is owned by a private company. So, yeah, you're right. It does need to be that way. For those of you that have visited the 9/11 memorial, let's take those two things and put them together, okay? Slavery was tragic. 9/11 was tragic. I think we can all agree on that. I've been to the 9/11 memorial myself. As a prior retired first responder, there's about nowhere else on the planet that I can go where so many of my brothers and sisters lost their lives at one time outside of the National Law Enforcement Memorial that exists. And it not humble you and make you very uncomfortable. It was a very somber time. It was a way I could learn. It was a way I could, reflect on history and things like that. So should we get rid of that simply because people from the Middle East from a different religion happen to knock down our tower to attack our country and kill all these first responders? The answer is no. And it's not somewhere where people are jumping up and down, hee-hawing and clapping and saying it was a great thing. You don't see Muslim people in there running around saying, oh, yeah, this was great, this happened, and celebrating and taking selfies with thumbs up and stuff. You don't see it. Just like you don't see, find me somebody online that went to Stone Mountain or somewhere that's taking selfies next to stuff about slavery and the Confederacy saying this is awesome. If they're doing it, they're trash. And I'm sure it's happened, but that's not the majority of people. And you need to have opportunities to go visit places like that, to reflect on your life, reflect on our history, and understand that, yeah, it's uncomfortable. Stuff that's happened sucks. Death is uncomfortable. Try experiencing it for yourself in front of you, and then you'll get it. But that's the problem we have. We're losing our courage. We're losing any kind of our manhood as a country and maturity as a country. And we're just so afraid to just be offended now. And it blows my mind. And this whole censorship thing's got to stop.
Yeah, it's like getting rid of history class. I mean, are we doing away with history teachers in schools? Because that's where you're going. I mean, that's exactly where we're going. Because if I don't agree with something in history, I just pitch a fit and whine like a baby and get somebody to take it away from the curriculum. I mean, this is silly. It's silly that someone would even be promoting removing statues or removing history and events from what's being taught today. And it's not just about what's being taught. Okay, they just want to remove it altogether. So even you won't even be able to go stumble upon it and find it yourself because they want to remove it. It's dangerous territory, and of course. Someone that doesn't have enough sense isn't going to understand it till after it happens. And then, of course, the woe is me happens at that point where, well, I didn't know, you know how many times I hear people, I didn't know. Yeah, you did. You did. You just didn't want to listen to it.
Yeah, 100%. And as you see this article I just shared, it's New York Post, so God forbid we shared them. They're talking about why schools have stopped teaching American history. A lot of it is because it's offensive, and that's why they've removed the stuff. And the study that they cited from 2014 said that only 18% of American high school kids are proficient in American history. Why do you think we're getting so close to a civil war right now? Why do you think that that's a thing? Why everybody's like, oh, I don't understand why this is happening. If you're smart, you'll get it. We're close. I promise you we're close to it. And depending how things go with the election, you may see it happen. And those of you that think you want it, I promise you don't on either side. Talk to anybody that's gone to war. We shared a post before from a previous from a person that served several tours overseas talking about that. That's why we're getting back to this point again, is because we're forgetting our history. We're forgetting these things. And we're not having conversations with our neighbors, with our friends, with anybody that may make you uncomfortable. Again, I have neighbors across the street that watch the podcast. They're Biden supporters. That's fine. I respect it. I don't hate them for it. They don't hate me for being a Trump supporter. But we can have conversations. He even made a joke the other day. My sign was out the front yard, and I happen to have it like in a certain part of my yard where I happen to put my trash cans. He goes, oh, the garbage men forgot to pick something up from your yard. I was like, oh, yeah, did they what? I wasn't even thinking. He goes, oh, they left your sign. We laughed, and it was funny. I didn't get offended I didn't be like, oh, we can't be friends anymore, blah, 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 because you said something out of the way about something I'm voting for. It was funny. So, dude, well played, sir. You know, it's all cool. But, dude, man, the left, you typically can't do it to them. You can't. Especially when it comes to media and our politicians, man, you can't do it. So, real quick, I want you to get a speech from Jorge Masvidal. I want to start wrapping up. For those of you that don't know, Jorge Masvidal is a UFC fighter. He is very famous for a knockout of Ben Askren a couple years ago. He happens to be Hispanic. He's from Miami, born and raised. He kind of came up on the street fighting scene, fighting with Kimbo Slice back in the day, and had a rough life. If you read his story or watch his story, it's mind blowing. So, by all intents and purposes, he's one of those people that you would typically think would vote for the left, right? You know, all this stuff comes from these areas, and that's what, you know, the left assumes people like him are going to vote for them. Well, let's see what he's got to say about this real quick.
Well, hey, Eric, real quick, I just want to give a little background on this. This is part of a broader group of fighters, and I think they have a group called Fighters Against Socialism.
They do.
And he is part of this, and this is where they were actually given that speech. Now, I know that they were with Rubio and I think DeSantis and a couple other people. They were doing this tour through Florida, giving these speeches. And so that's just a little background to give you a little information on what group this actually is. And several of these guys are very famous. Obviously, Masvidal is an extreme success in the UFC. He has a very huge following. He's Hispanic himself, and he speaks a lot of truth right here. But just so everyone's clear, there is groups of people having to band together to fight against socialism, and it's not groups that you would think it would be. And this is a great example of it.
Case in point of your last statement, James. Thank you for saying that. So for those of y'all that watch UFC or may not, there's a guy named Colby Covington. He fights in 170-pound weight class just like Masvidal does. Oh, there we go. We're back. Okay. I lost my signal for a second, so I hope I got everybody. I was breaking down Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal, talking about two contrasting people. Colby Covington's a 170-pound fighter in the UFC. Him and Masvidal, who you see here, used to be best friends, roommates, teammates. They fought at American Top Team together, which was run by Dan Lambert in Coconut Creek, Florida, I believe. They hate each other's guts. They would kill each other if you put them in the same room together just because of personal stuff, but they both support the same president. They come from completely different walks of life, I believe. Colby grew up on the left coast, grew up in Oregon, I think is where he's from, and came up, wrestling, country boy, blah, 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 blah. He actually had Donald Trump on the phone after his last fight when he won. Donald Trump called him. And again, you got two people from two different backgrounds that hate each other's guts, but they have one common ground. Let's listen to what Jorge has to say real quick.
Democrats just think that they're entitled to the Latino vote. They think that we just have to hand it over to them. That's right. We sure as hell don't. Así mismo. They got to show us what they can do for us, what they can do for our communities. We're not going to buy the same wolf tickets and false promises that destroyed great countries like Venezuela and Cuba. It's not going to happen. You know what else is not going to work for them? Playing Despacito on your cell phone to pander to us. Hell no. You got to give us some credit for having heads on our shoulders. I'm going to wrap this up. Some words of Barack Obama. He said elections have consequences. That is true. And those words have never been more true than they are today. We either re-elect President Trump and keep America great. Amen. Or we let Joe Biden destroy the greatest country the world has ever seen. Now, I'm a professional athlete and I've been one for most of my life, so I've always seen things through a sports lens. That makes Donald Trump our head coach. And before the global pandemic, we were winning Super Bowls. And when you're winning Super Bowls, you don't fire the coach. Doesn't matter if you don't like the plays he runs, the players he puts on the field, or what he says on Twitter. You sure as hell don't replace him for another coach that's been in the business for 47 years at every level and never won a fucking game.
And there you have it. He really put it in perspective. He's very well spoken, and people need to recognize what he's saying. Again, Google Lexit, Lexit, Google Blexit, Blexit. Look at their marches. See what you see happening. Those of y'all on the left that think it's going to be a landslide victory for Biden are sadly mistaken. I don't think all the cheating in the world is going to win him the election. I had initially said a few weeks ago, that I thought Trump would win by, I think, 4 or 5 points. I still stand by that. I think it may be even greater. I don't go based on projections from, the news media and stuff like that, because I saw something the other day gave Donald Trump a 91% chance to win the election. Well, media outlets said Hillary had a 91% chance to win and vice versa. So we'll see. But based on what I'm seeing in the pulse of the nation and things that are going on in the communities around us, I think you're about to see a huge landslide for Trump because of stuff like Twitter, because of stuff like Facebook. And I think in the end, we should send Mark Zuckerberg a thank you note, along with the CEO of Twitter. I can't remember his name, and tell them thank you, because I think people are really starting to see the extremism that's going on. And people are going to be upset when it happens. And I hate it for you, man.
Yeah, I mean, they've exposed themselves, and the medium through which they're trying to correct the issue is just making it worse. So,
absolutely.
So, I mean, it was. I want to say it's probably more closely related to some of the distributions that QAnon has done, and I think one of their big talking points with Q was that the integration of the digital age was something that was, it brought a lot of leap forward. It brought there was a lot of positive things that came out of it, but at the same time, it also brought a lot of overreach and a lot of oversight onto the general public. And that typically benefited those in power, the politicians, people like that. I think that very same thing, this mass communication tool that we have now, will be the exact same thing that buries them. So the thing that caused them to be able to, that provides the means for them to be able, for lack of a better word, to be able to spy or to be able to control what's going on, is also going to be the downfall, because we have a lot of ability as ground level citizens to research for ourselves, investigate for ourselves, and find information and that otherwise we would not have. And I think it's going to backfire on those in charge that are pushing this censorship. And, we'll see where it goes. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yep. So that's a good place to wrap it up on. Appreciate the feedback, even from those that don't agree with our points. I always encourage people that, maybe have an opposing view post. We're going to tell you how we feel. You may not like it. I may not like what you have to say, but, just like you have a right to ask me a question, I have a right to respond. So does James. So we're going to respond. But anyways, thanks for taking the time to listen to David today. So again, thank you. All our normal viewers and listeners, thank you again. We will keep y'all updated best we can of when we're making the move over. I will try to link it best I can. And I would ask you guys, when we're giving y'all links to stuff to our podcast, and if you truly believe in what we're saying, please go to your personal pages and link them and share them right now until we can get moved over, because that's how we get our name out there right now. And we need your help to do that, and that's just what we got to do. All voices need to be heard. David, you're right. And he said, thank you. Dude, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you sticking around. So again, thank you for that, buddy. But please help us get the word out. Even if you don't agree with us, man, it doesn't hurt to listen to opposing points of view. I hope you all have a great week. We'll be back soon. James and I have been working on some stuff. So we'll be back very soon, bigger and better, like we always are. And again, thank you, James. Last words with you, buddy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Next time I probably won't be broadcasting from my vehicle. A little issue this morning, so we had to make do with what we could do. But next time I will be in studio. We're going to put together the best plan we can for what we feel like is the best platform to push our message out. And our message, more than anything, isn't our message. It's a message that tries to follow the name of the broadcast. We talk about, the name, The Unfiltered Truth. To us, what that really means is being able to, because it's very difficult to tell what is truth and what isn't truth, and we're seeing that now with what's going on with Facebook and other platforms. So it's really to be able to sit down and have a debate and throw viewpoints back and forth. So we'll pick the platform that we think is most suitable for that and that is the most viewer friendly as well. We appreciate the support. We're not going anywhere, that's for sure. And we definitely not pulling guns out of the background of our studios as well. So, so you guys look forward to that. But to wrap up, I would say thank you to everyone who's been watching the show and been supporting. We get a lot of really good feedback. We get some bad feedback here and there, but that's cool too. We need both of those viewpoints. So, just like Eric said before, we can listen to your viewpoint, you can listen to ours, and we can all agree at the end to either agree or disagree, but we can still be cordial. So, you guys have a good day. It's a beautiful day outside if you're somewhere around the Atlanta area, Georgia. So, if you need a breath of fresh air, just step outside.